the product is the house, but the service, I think, is what ultimately drives your ability to succeed in this business. You can have a really nice house with really crappy service, and you might get a higher rate than a not as nice house, but you're never going to be able to really drive the highest rates, because people are placing their loved ones in your care towards the end of their life, at a time where they're probably going through a lot of pain personally too.
Alrighty, folks. One of the things I love about Sundays is I get to introduce you to new faces and new names. What we have here is we have a returning guest, Aaron, who's been on the channel a couple of times, but he has brought us someone that is doing residential assisted living. This is a very exciting and yet new area of real estate investing. I'm seeing lots of buy and hold investors pivot from either long-term buy and hold, maybe midterm, short-term, into this new area. As prices stay high and rates stay high, sometimes you need an alternative. We're going to learn what is residential assisted living. We're going to talk about all the ins and outs, and does it make sense for you? We're going to welcome a new name and a new face, Luke. Luke, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing well. Why don't we go to you first, Luke? Give us a quick resume of who you are, what you do, and we'll go to Aaron next. Who is Luke?
Yeah. My name is Luke. I'm a family man first. I've got a wife and 3 kids out here in Virginia Beach right now. I am in the military. Started out first 6 years in the military on the West Coast in San Diego area. Then we came out here to Virginia Beach. Got started in real estate investing in 2018 when we bought our first home, and my wife and I were broke for a while, just trying to afford that. Luckily, we had the VA loan to get us into a place, but listened to a mentor and good friend of mine to build an ADU. And we did that. Just made a ton of sense to when houses are selling for $600,000-$700,000 to put maybe $200,000 in to create another one on your property. And
that's a good return. You're a smart guy, Luke.
Not smart, just copying what worked from my good friends. So we did that and did that again in 2020. So those have done really well for us. But as rates increased in 2022, started making less and less sense because prices were not going down on homes. So I was looking for a pivot, and being in the military and that taking a lot of my time, I knew I had to have passivity, and I knew I needed cash flow. So that really led me to this thing called residential assisted living. And that's what Aaron, that's how I met Aaron, actually. I actually found 2 partners through the War Room Mastermind, and that's a military real estate mastermind. That's why I love masterminds, is you can just meet incredible people that, we had been in business for a year and a half by the time we actually met each other in person, which kind of speaks to the power of it. But I did my first deal, and I can talk about those numbers throughout this or whatever. But when they saw what I was doing with the RAL investment strategy, they hopped on, and we've created something called Open Range Capital. We own 5 residential assisted living homes that we lease to operators. We've done a couple syndications with the strategy. And then we started something called the RAL Room, which is a community mastermind centered around educating folks about RAL, since it's a relatively undiscovered thing. And we're super excited about that.
Well, very, very cool. Lots and lots of questions, but let's go to Aaron first. Aaron, I know we've had some discussions in the past, but let's remind people, who is Aaron and all of that.
Sure. So first and foremost, I am a father to 3 young children under the age of 3. And,
I remember. That sounds chaotic.
Yes, it certainly is. But my wife and I own 8 single-family rentals across 3 different states. So I think most people know me as an out-of-state investor, which I still very much am. But part of why I'm on this call is, recently my wife and I made the pivot into residential assisted living, largely thanks to Luke, Alex, and Charlie, because we joined their mastermind right when they launched it. I'll get into a little bit of why, but we've made a pretty big pivot, and we're now doing a ground-up development project and building 2 assisted living homes here in Houston, Texas, where I live. And so, yeah, we can dig into that a little bit too.
Very, very well. Let's start with this. Why don't we define for us what is residential assisted living? And folks, he's in the military, so he's going to use acronyms like they're soup. RAL. residential assisted living, Luke. We are just mortals here, buddy.
Yeah. No, that's something that I'm going to have to learn to once I get out of the military, learn to tone down. But yeah, residential assisted living equals RAL, and to me, in my equation, RAL equals passivity and cash flow with the way we do it. Yeah, it's basically everybody knows about residential or assisted living facilities, and that's where there might be 50, hundreds, even thousands of residents in a home that are cared for in a large scale facility. And usually what you'll get is kind of complaints about the level of care. What we're seeing is a huge gap between the number of seniors that are going to be getting older and older in our country and the actual capacity to provide high level care for the seniors. 10,000 folks a day are becoming seniors in our country, and the demographics are just undeniable, and the gap between what we have and what we need is just growing steadily. So that was one of the big reasons why we got into it. Not only the cash flow and passivity, but the demographic demands are undeniable.
But let's really define what it is, because again, a lot of people, I mean, Aaron himself, out-of-state investor, my channel is full of single family home investors. We're not talking about buying a 20,000 square foot rectangle with multiple floors and throwing 1,000 beds in it. That's not what we're talking about here, right?
That's correct. So you can do this with probably your own home that you're living in right now. So basically the first home that I bought was a 6-bed, 3-bathroom home that had been converted with ADA compliance, with grab bars by the toilets, wider entries to bathrooms and through doorways, ramp entry to the home. But it's a regular single family home that's been converted to meet the capacity of however many seniors you're going to actually have there as residents. It could be anywhere from maybe 4 to 10. In 10 in Arizona is the capacity that you can actually have in a residential home. Every state and locality are going to have their limits on how many you can have. I believe, Aaron, in Texas, it's 16.
Correct.
But so that can kind of make the scalability nice when you can fit more residents into your home, but still provide that high level of care. But it's a regular single family home that's been converted to meet the demands of senior care.
So just so again, the audience, so this could be, you could go pull up the MLS theoretically in any market, look at any 4, 5, 6, 7 bedroom house, and that could, again, assuming the numbers work out, become a facility for assisted living. Is that what you're saying, Luke?
That's right. And you wouldn't use the F word, facility. You would use
my bad.
You would just use the
Resident.
term RAL or senior living home. Yep. Exactly.
Okay. Single living. And again, I love that story. Again, every state, every locale is going to have different demographics. It sounded like Texas is a max of 16. I think you said Arizona was, 8, 6, something like that.
10. Yep.
10. Okay. 10. So again, lots of research for folks to go look at. But it does sound like, just any standard home as is it going to work? It sounds like there's some upfront investments. You're talking about grab rails and size and things of that nature. Any ballpark figures of what about a I don't know what you would call it, right sizing or make ready, or what does that look like?
So in our experience, the ones we've tried to buy are actually already operating as the. But you could, when I first got into this, because I was familiar with the BRRRR, which is buy, rent, or buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, basically a buy and hold strategy where you're adding value to the home. My original strategy when I was going to go this alone was buy regular homes under market value and then put maybe $30,000 to $50,000 in, and now you've created ADA compliant home that you can get registered as a residential assisted living, and now start operating out of that home. So I would say, safe to say, $30,000 to $50,000 to retrofit a home, and it's going to be dependent on each locality, on all the different specs. But putting sprinklers in the home is probably the biggest ticket item through the fire suppression system. Yeah,
it makes total sense. Again, I got lots of questions. So, What are other things that you might do for a house? Because again, what I'm hearing here, and again, this is just my very naive view, it's very much like rent by the room or room by the rent, whatever you call it, rent by the room, but you're doing it with a very defined clientele, obviously 65 and older, assisted living. And does this turn into like a triple net where you're triple netting out of the physical location and giving it to a provider? Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, that's a great question there. So we actually call it double net, because we're
Okay.
still paying the principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and then we're also making sure that basically there's the roof and the structure is stable and secure. And then what we do is we actually double net lease to an operator in our homes to get them in the house, start operating, kind of rent by the room, but really it's an operating business inside the residential home that we are leasing to this operator, is what we call them.
Mm-hmm.
And the operator is the business owner who actually will make sure those beds are filled. And they're going to owe you that. The way we do it, they owe you that lease amount, no matter how many beds are filled. So,
Right. Okay.
So if you know, in a 10 bed, the first one I bought for $875,000 or $875,000, that's a 10 bed operating assisted living home, and they're going to pay me $8,000 a month, whether or not they have 4 folks in the house, one person in the house, or full capacity, 10 people. Yep.
Okay. All right. And now, are you or the operator responsible for furnishing, like the inside?
That's going to be dependent on how you negotiate it with them, but the way we've done it, they're responsible for all the furnishing.
Okay. And then again, because of the operator, they're supplying all the, I don't know what you call it, medical attention or home, whatever,
the services.
Watching the house. Services.
Yeah. And Michael, I do want to make another distinction. There's different types of RAL. So there's varying levels of care that are going to be happening in the home. And I wish my doctor partner, Alex, was here to kind of go through all the different ones. But there's also behavioral living, which is kind of a subsection of residential assisted living, where it might be sober living home or, rehab, or just a behavioral health type of thing for people with needs that can't be taken care of in a normal setting. But then you have higher levels of care. You have independent living, you have assisted living, where the day-to-day tasks are going to need a caregiver to actually help the folks through it. And then you have the highest level of care, maybe dementia, and going into your years where you're going to be passing soon. So all those different levels of care are actually going to bring about a different income. Usually, obviously, dementia care and memory care is gonna call for a higher level of care that's needed. So that's going to bring a higher lease amount generally.
Yeah. Well, I have still lots of questions. So, Aaron, why don't we go to you just for a little bit? Talk about your transition from just a boring, month to month or year lease landlord. What is it about this that caught your attention? Was it simply a cash flow? Was it, making an impact? Was it kind of moving the maintenance onto someone else? Why, Aaron, did you decide to kind of poke at this a little bit?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So when we started investing, we were living in Las Vegas, and the first home we bought was just a standard rental property about a mile away from where we lived. So the furthest thing from long distance investing, the furthest thing from, it was a straight ahead, boring buy and hold rental. 4 months later, the agent that sold us that house called us because he knew we were young investors looking to plant seeds. And he said, "Hey, I have these 2 homes. They're currently operating as assisted living for adults with developmental disabilities. It takes a specific type of buyer to want this, but they're leased. They're on these 5-year leases, basically exactly what Luke described, this double net style lease. The only thing we'd be responsible for was the large CapEx, the roof, maybe major appliances. But otherwise, they covered maintenance, and they were paying above market rent. And it was already negotiated, and they were operating out of there. So we kind of figured out how to rearrange. At that point, like, we didn't have a ton of money for those down payments, but we did a cash out refi on our primary. We basically dumped out all the piggy banks from our stocks, and we figured out how to get into them because there were such compelling economics. But that one kind of felt like it fell out of the sky, right? We were right place, right time. We got that call from our agent. Fast forward, 6 years, And, we've bought other rental properties in other states. We've moved a few times, and we've had a few kids. That's another big variable. But we kind of looked backwards at the end of 2024 at our portfolio, and those two properties were driving well over 50% of our portfolio returns. So that's the financial component, right? But all the while we had been visiting and keeping tabs with this company that provides the service. And my family and my wife's family both have two different scenarios. One is like we have family members who have required that service and they have those developmental disabilities. And so seeing like how the operators are providing that service and taking care of people and providing the environment that they need to thrive and succeed, that also felt good, right? So, and especially I think anyone on this show, when you get those kind of squeaky wheel type tenants, sometimes you ask yourself, what am I doing this for? Yes, like I own a rental property and it's contributing to the local economy, but sometimes those little annoyances, it's hard to like really attach to the impact you're having. So we kind of like noticed that angle too of, hey, this is not only a great investment, but it's providing a service, that's much needed. So the senior care element though, we, Luke's partner, Alex, was on a podcast, I think it was last July, and part of another mastermind group I'm in. And when I heard that podcast, I was like manic. It was just laying out most of what Luke just introduced, like all the demographic need, how the different investment strategies are structured. And I just fell into a rabbit hole, and it was right when they were launching the mastermind. So kind of realized that instead of just treating those two homes like, okay, that was an anomaly, I'm never going to be able to do it again, I noticed that they had provided this forum and this network for people who wanted to get into RALs as a strategy. And so that felt like kind of the missing component for us. So we joined. And last thing I'll say just about like kind of the pivot is my wife, her grandparents and her father all had memory related illness at the end of their life. And they were in those big, smelly facilities like Luke described at the top. They had really poor quality of care, bad staff to resident ratios, and people were just kind of miserable. It really, really haunted my wife to see her family members go through that all the way through to the end of their life. And so I think when we started piecing all this stuff together and we started like learning that, hey, there is an actual path to open these yourself, whether you choose to operate them or lease them to an operator. And we just it just hit all the right notes at the right time. And now we're, my wife is fully bought into this strategy too. And we're going to build our own and actually operate the businesses too.
Wow. Very, very cool. Well, let's talk about one more time before we get into building. One more question about, hey, this is exciting me. I can look for a big house in my neighborhood or whatnot. Where does somebody really start, Luke? Because again, there's lots of different kind of assisted living, sober care, elder care, memory care. Should somebody go find one of those providers in their community first? Go ask them, hey, what are you looking for? This, that, the other? Because I'm guessing that's where it starts, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So there's many paths that lead to actually starting one, but the way we did it was there's actually in Phoenix where we got started, there is a specialty realtor group that specifically targets these things. And they have a huge network because Phoenix is just a hub for residential care and where folks want to retire. And so we went through them, but that was that way. And because they have a huge marketing platform there and everybody knows who they are in Phoenix. But you could start by talking to your state, like local licensing. You can call the zoning department. There's actually lists that you can find through the city of all the operating homes in town and actually get the phone numbers and look up the businesses and call them. We've also done that whenever we're looking for more deals, not going through this broker because there's obviously a premium to buy them when you're going through a broker. We did direct mail for a couple of our deals. Just shot out letters to all the different operators that were in the area, and we got a number of calls back, and a couple were in our buy box. and zoned in on those and got a win-win deal with a couple.
So again, in that case, just to be clear, you were not marketing to big houses. You were marketing to existing owners of care facilities.
Right. Okay. Because if you want to just get started right off the bat, it's going to be a little bit difficult without. Sorry about my camera, guys. This is my phone. But it's going to be a little bit difficult to just get in. And yes, you can get with a builder and with the city, you can put the sprinklers in the house. You can do you can make it ADA compliant. But then if you don't have any residents to put into the house, you're going to be at an impasse, and you've basically done all those renovations for nothing. So you have to have somebody who's either been doing it so you can lease it to that operator to move into your house and actually start operating out of it, or you can find the residents yourself and provide that care as the business owner as well. But that's an added layer of effort that you're going to have to do. And there's some staffing things you're going to have to deal with, and there's some more liability there. But
because that's why I think a lot of people are going to hear this, because this is the world I live in, right? Cash flow is hard today. We've all talked about that. Prices are high, rates are high. People hear residential assisted living, sober living, rent by the room. Basically, hey, how can I increase revenue per house? And one of them is more bedrooms, more beds, which is assisted living. Where I think what I'm hearing, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is RAL does that, right? It helps with that. But it is most efficient to buy an existing facility or existing asset.
Well,
that's
a great point. Because people are going to need to know, and that's the big barrier to entry in this realm, is how do I get started, and how do I get these contacts? That is actually the reason we started the RAL room. So we educate folks on how to actually get started, get that network going, meet people in your local area who can have the contacts that you need, who can give you the information to actually retrofit your home. And there's all these different placement agencies as well to find like a place for mom. There's a number of different ones that will actually help you get folks in there. But yes, that's why we created the RAL room, is because that's the barrier to entry.
That's the piece that no one talks about. Because I remember April Crosley, shout out April Crosley, somebody I interviewed many times in my second book. She wanted to do this same reason, right? Motivated, family experience, good heart, all that stuff. But she was talking about buying these massive homes. I think it was in Tennessee. I could be wrong. And she was just commiserating about the pain and challenges, because there was nobody that kind of had the cheat sheet. All right, here are the 17 things you need to do to a big house to even to get a possible yes answer, right? Sprinklers, I don't know what they are, but and I don't even know if it's 17, it might be 700 things. So if that's what the RAL room does, that makes it, because that's what people don't get, right? Because everybody sees a house, they see bedrooms, they get the idea of beds, they get the idea of, double net to someone else for most of the headache. But we're not highlighting, oh, by the way, folks, there's a $30,000 to $60,000 lift on a traditional house to even get a yes answer. And then where do you go find these people, right? Because I agree with you. The demographics are unquestioned what is coming. But what organizations? Who's a trustworthy organization? Who's going to just make your house a deep, dark, smelly place like all the big facilities? Who can I use? Who can I trust? Right? There's a lot of there's just so many unknowns.
Yeah. If I can add one thing to that, Michael, I think it's also the timeline, right? It's setting realistic expectation. Yes. This isn't something you can just go, analyze a few deals, submit an offer, and you're going to close in 45 days and just be off to the races. Like, there's all the stuff you outline takes time. Some of it happens at the same time. Some of it's dependent on other things. So I think just having like you said, not only just a checklist, but like, in what order do I need to do these things? Yeah. And, where do I go to do them? And how long might it take?
Yeah. Think about somebody buying a $500,000 house or $800,000 house with the visions of grandeur of running a assisted living facility, sober living, whatever it is. And then you got to figure out, you got a $60,000 lift, but you got 9 months of permitting. Well, that's a hell of a lot of mortgage payments between closing and a potential yes answer.
Right.
Right.
So I'll even add another wrench to the story, Michael.
Please. I love it. Let's do it. Everybody has to go in with eyes wide open.
Yeah. So even when you buy a home that's already been retrofitted and operating in that capacity, even so, we give a ramp up period to the people who are going to move into the home so they can get their business off into the races. Because, you know, the ones that have been doing this forever, they have a wait list on folks that want to move into the house once there's a vacancy. But if somebody is just trying to start their residential assisted living business, let's say they're a caregiver that's burnt out working at one of these facilities that don't care about their residents, and they want to start their own because they actually care and want to make this impact, their name is not out there. So if I'm going to lease my home to that person who has all the qualifications and the experience to actually make this impact, they need a little bit of a buffer to actually get their name out there and start. So we always bake into this lease that my first home, it's a 5-year lease. It wasn't $8,000 a month right off the bat. It was $2,500, which didn't even cover the full debt service coverage for me for the first couple months. Then, you know, months 3 through 6, it went up to $5,000 a month, which was covering the debt service and a little bit more. And then over the first year, now it's going up to that point. And then we increased the lease 3% per year. So that's another timeline thing. That's a very good point, Aaron.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be, again, I think there's a lot here. I think a lot of people, I think they will get very big eyes on this topic. I just want them to realize, yeah, the money's there, but there's timeline, carrying costs, you know, all of those things. Where I think this gets really exciting, where I think Aaron might be going with this, is once you understand all of it, is brand new development, right? I think that's where this really goes, is where if you are somebody who understands the quote unquote business model, I mean, think about designing a home on purpose. It's a better use of square footage. It's a better layout. It's likely a very different configuration from a standard big house with one family, right? So talk about, you know, because I think you said, Aaron, Texas is 16, so you could essentially just build a lot of cookie cutter buildings on purpose, right?
Yeah, we are using a model. We're working with a mentor who has built this exact home, and we've seen it live in person. We're calling it a memory care mansion. So it's a 10,000 square foot, 16 bedroom, 16 private bathroom, ranch style home. So that one thing we didn't mention yet is 1 story is very important.
Yeah, very important.
2-story is not impossible, but it is highly not preferential.
Problematic.
Yeah, yes. Problematic. So this is designed, like you said, like very built to spec, with specific considerations for memory care, right? People who are dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia. So every last little touch as to how the rooms are designed, what's in the bathrooms, where the railings are, all the different placement of the cabinets, everything, the color schemes, it's all built with that in mind. There are different things, and I'm no expert by any stretch, but there are different things that can trigger you when you're dealing with that. And, you know, this is designed to avoid things that would cause disruption or cause someone to get upset when they're already, you know, in a challenging situation. So yes, you get, the way I kind of describe it is like you're controlling all the variables when you're building from the ground up versus having to go retrofit an existing 5 or 6 bed home and turn it into 8 beds with enough square footage and enough bathrooms. You know, we're doing the private bathroom route, which is meant to be a differentiator. That doesn't always happen. And basically, you know, by doing it, I think what you're alluding to, right, is that by doing it this way, we're able to build what we hope to be a premium product. And then the product is the house, but the service, I think, is what ultimately drives your ability to succeed in this business. You can have a really nice house with really crappy service, and you might get a higher rate than a not as nice house, but you're never going to be able to really drive the highest rates because people are placing their loved ones in your care towards the end of their life at a time where they're probably going through a lot of pain personally too. Maybe guilt or maybe just like feelings of wanting their parent to be happy, but unable to deal with it. So this is a really, really, really big decision for people. And so I think you really have to knock it out of the park on both fronts in order to, thrive in the long run. The demographics can carry you far, but can't carry you over the finish line into the, the top of the pack, if you will.
Yeah. So let's poke at that a little bit. So again, it's great that you have a mentor. It's great that there's a physical model that you could walk through, see, touch, and feel. I have no idea what it costs to build per square foot in Texas. Are we talking 180, 220, 250 a square foot? Any rough idea?
Yeah, that was pretty accurate. Somewhere in the 180 to 220 is what we're finding here in Houston.
All right. Let's call it 200. Just easy math. So again, you're doing a 10,000. That's a crazy ratio. That's 1,000 square foot per person.
Right. There's a big common area in the middle, right, where there's like a living area that also has a dining room. There's a nice big open layout with there's a kitchen that looks into that. There's 2 separate little common areas where people can do family visits. There's a salon, which doubles as a place where doctors and nurses can come and do medical consultations. So there's a few different visiting areas, right? And that's important too, because people will be in and out throughout the day. And then the rooms themselves almost function like a studio apartment. Like they could stay in there for long periods of time and be very comfortable. They have what they need, but it's encouraged and programmed in such a way that people participate, and it's a community-like environment. There will be activities, and the caretakers will be engaging with people, again, as an antidote to that big facility where there's 30-to-1 staff ratio and not a lot of individualized attention.
Now, what is a lot on something like? I'm guessing fenced, just grass, or what are we talking?
So we're under contract for 7 acres, and we're going to build 2 buildings. So we'll have a paving route. You have to have enough paved to get a fire truck in and out. So that'll kind of surround the homes. And then we're going to do some wooded areas. We will have some fencing, but we're going to create a little communal like garden area so people can go out when it's nice and recreate. But again, there will be very close eye on making sure people can't wander off. There'll be those safeguards in place too.
And again, you said this earlier. I just want to point it again. Your vision of this is not only to be the owner of the property, but you want to build a brand and facility and provide the service. That's Aaron's vision for this, like at the top.
Aaron and Andrea, my wife. So that is the vision. But I will say, when we entered the RAL room last August, when they launched, we were fully bought onto the idea that we were just going to try and replicate what we did in Vegas 5 years ago, which is buy a property and figure out how to lease it to a company, because running the operations seemed like totally out of reach for us. But the more we studied, the more we realized, yes, it will 100% be very challenging, but there are playbooks, there are people who have done this that we don't have to reinvent all those processes. We just need to educate ourselves and learn and do the work. And for my wife, it was also a very conscious decision. This aligned with her passion and something that, really she wanted to be the solution to a big problem that she faced in her life. And so I think she has the fire that it takes to, be a exemplary service.
Yeah. Andrea is going to get through a lot of stuff with that strong of a why.
Yes.
Having that why is critical. Well, Luke, there's a lot here, lots of things coming. I think you guys are onto something. I think there's a lot of real estate investors who will have big eyes and dollar signs, but it sounds like you guys are interested in educating them that, okay, guys, hold on, slow down a little bit, realize what you're getting into. There's some costs and timelines and whatnot. Where should we send people to ask more? Because this is definitely an area I do not play in.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's our website is theralroom.com/mastermind. If you go to that, you'll find some of our resources there. You'll learn about the RAL room. You'll learn about what we're doing with Open Range Capital. You can get involved. So that's THERALROOM.com/mastermind. And that'd be a good first place to start. You can reach out to us directly at team@theralroom.com as well if you have questions. But yeah, I do want to riff one more thing off of what Aaron said. The timeline is a huge hurdle. All these different licenses and permitting, that's a big hurdle. But if you can get through that portion, and as real estate investors, we're not in it to get rich in 1 year. The freedom takes time, and this is no different. But I would say that with that cash flow piece, you're getting short term, even with the lease to operator model that I was talking about, where we lease it to the business. we're seeing short-term rental returns for the passivity of less than a single family rental on time. If you go and do what Aaron's doing and what actually Open Range Capital and we are going to do in this year, we're going to develop doing exactly what you said. And what gave us that confidence to do that? Opening the RAL room. We are learning just as much as everybody else in there about the systems and processes and how to do it. And that gave us the confidence to actually get into the development and start doing this as well, owning the actual brand, not just the land. But yeah, I would say that the cash flow is there. And yeah, there are some hurdles, but if you go to the ralroom.com/mastermind, that's the next best place to go. I don't think anybody is doing it like we are at the price that we're doing it. Literally, the price of a year in the RAL room is less than what I make every month in cash flow on my first property that I got on this.
Very, very cool. Well, guys, again, as they say in sports, father time is undefeated. It plays throughout life. The demographics, the baby boomers, this is coming. It's coming. So there's lots of opportunity there. Again, in an area I have zero experience, theralroom.com. Guys, Luke, Aaron, thanks for being here. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.